Hi everyone, my name is Mariah Alviso-Saenz, and this week's Journal Club article is called Peer Influence via Instagram, Effects on Brain and Behavior in Adolescence and Young Adulthood. So this article had multiple components to it, focusing on behavioral and neural findings, and I'm going to mainly focus on looking over the behavioral findings from this study. Researchers wanted to replicate previous studies that had been done, just with an older population. It had been done with adolescents in high school previously, and they wanted to do a study again with that, but also including college students. Another thing that they wanted to do with this study was examine between group differences and age-related effects between the two different participant groups, looking at kind of different brain regions and looking at reward behaviors and executive function. And then finally, they wanted to explore individual differences in neural activity as a function of health-related risky behavior, and I will be focusing more on the latter part of that, the risky behavior aspect. So, some background information for you guys. A lot of this will be a refresher. I don't think it's a surprise that adolescents and young adults have been kind of the primary users of social media, and this study wants to look at the peer influence of that social media can have, and as we know, adolescents are greatly affected by their peers. This study also looks at risky behavior and emerging adulthood and how those are related and how they compare with those still in high school. I chose this quote to read because I think it highlights the moral neural side of this study, which, while I will be focusing more on the behavioral part, it is important to note the neural part as it coincides with the behavioral part in most areas of the study. So the younger adolescent brain, which has not experienced this maturation, is also characterized by heightened sensitivity of areas involved in effect and reward processing. In particular, the extant literature has demonstrated that the nucleus accumbens shows greater responsivity to monetary reward during the second decade of life, peaking to mid-late adolescence. So the way that the study was conducted, they had an adolescent sample of 34 high school students and a young adult sample of 27 university students. Of the 34 high school students, the average age was 16.8 years. There were 18 females and 16 males. In the young adult sample of 27 university students, the average age was 19.9 years, and there was 17 females and 10 males. Participants were recruited via flyers. High school students found flyers around their community, and this was in Los Angeles. And then university students found flyers on their university campus. Participants submitted photographs from their own personal Instagram accounts, and participants were told that the photos would create an internal social network, but in reality, participants saw a mix of their own photos with a standardized set of photos previously selected by researchers. Participants were shown a number of likes next to each photo, and they had the ability to either like the photo or move to the next photo. There were 3 categories of images, and those were risky, skimpy, and neutral. And MRI scans were done to examine the neural activity within participants' brains. And participants were also given the revised cognitive appraisal of risky events questionnaire, which consisted of 2 different sections. So, looking at results. High school students were more likely to like popular images and click next for unpopular images. This aligned with previous findings and was significant for all three photograph categories. And they found that high school and college students did not differ in their overall tendency to like images, meaning the same findings as the one mentioned above was found for college students as well as high school students. One major difference that they found between the cohort groups was that high school students and college participants differed greatly in their neural response to risky photos compared to neutral photos, and they were able to tell this through MRI scans. So, looking at the author's discussion points, findings make intuitive sense given the continuing importance of the peer context in emerging adulthood and the popularity of mobile social media among college students. So essentially this is saying that the results they found in regard to peer influence relating to students liking photos that were previously popular makes sense with the idea that adolescents favor what their peers favor. Another note that researchers made was that while the study was focused on peer influence, it's possible that non-peers might have a similar effect. Parents or other adults in a young adolescent or emerging adult's life might have influence on them as well. And then finally, while college students did not demonstrate decreased activation of regions implicated in cognitive control while viewing risky photographs, they did report higher overall risk-taking, unlike high school students, which was an important thing to note in regard to the actual behavior that comes out of the neural information found within the study. So I really liked this article. It was really concise. One of the shorter journal articles that I've read, which made it easy to follow and understand. One of the first things that I noted in my head was that the sample size was very small. So I think it would be interesting to replicate the study with a larger sample size and see what kind of results researchers would get with that, and potentially raise credibility for the study along with that. With most research studies, I think about race and SES and how those factors come into play, and there wasn't any mention of that, so that question and thought popped into my head. Something I thought might be interesting to add to a future study would be adding different categories to the types of images shown to kind of expand upon different adolescent and college student interests. And I also thought it might be interesting to expand the age cohort even further to look at college upperclassmen, those in their early 20s, to see if the research findings would remain the same or if they would change with age. And here is the abstract and citation. Let me know what you guys think of the article. Thanks for listening.